how's it going everybody? It's RPG Gilmore here with another build video for Healadin. And I'm kind of pre-planning for Mod 12, which comes out in about 2 weeks. But anyways, I'll start with the powers. We're gonna go with 4 in Radiant Strike, Burning Light, Aura of Courage, Divine Judgment, Sacred Weapon, Smite, 4 in Lay on Hands, 2 in Heroism. I believe that was just to get to the next tier when filling them out. 4 in Bane, 4 in Aura of Truth, 4 in Aura of Vengeance, 4 in each of Oath Strike, Templar's Wrath, and Aura of Wisdom, 4 in Bond of Virtue, 4 in Cleansing Touch, 3 in Restoration, 4 in Cure Wounds, 4 in Shield of Faith, 3 in Divinity, 4 in Valve Enmity, 4 in Healing Font, 3 in Healing Aura of Life, and 4 in Relentless Avenger, and finally 4 in Aura of Solitude. Your primary abilities you're going to have on are Valve Enmity, and Bond of Virtue, and Smite. Your dailies, you're going to have Divine Judgment and Shield of Faith. In your R2, you're going to want Oath Strike, and then in your L2, Radiant Strike. And for your auras, you're primarily going to want Aura of Courage and Aura of Wisdom. Aura of Truth if you're doing something that really requires the damage reduction. You can also run Aura of Vengeance. This actually is fairly useful for clearing out trash mobs and even some harder bosses in dungeons. And next we'll go to Feats. First up, we'll put 3 into Toughness, 3 into Weapon Mastery, and 5 into Divine Action. Then it's going to be 3 into Exemplar's Haste, 1 into Impassion Please, and 5 into Steadfast. This way we get our Divine call back faster. We do crit, and that applies to our heals too. And then HP is just always good, and we get additional benefits for it. Exemplar's Haste, the faster our encounters recharge, the better. And Impassion Please, the one of just to get to the Steadfast, and it's more useful than the rest of the feats that we could take. Next up, we'll take Bound by Light. A lot of people take Swift Flash, but I took Bound by Light for when I'm running PvP content. So you get more stuns this way. After that, it's going to be Flash of Light for the better cooldowns. Radiant Champion, this gives you movement speed and cooldown reduction, which are both very good for you. I put 3 into Echoes of Light and 2 into Beacon of Hope as a test, and so far it's been working out very well. Having the 2 points into Beacon of Hope, and then having a 6% chance to trigger Echoes of Light it still triggers fairly often. So this has been working out very well for me. And then 5 points into Prism, so that every time you use your daily power, you're basically spreading around heals like crazy with it. And then Vengeful Judge, it gives you better cooldowns, gives you a damage bonus, and it can even potentially recharge your Divine Call. So it's just the best path for this build, and it's primarily a healing build. In Light, you're going to want Gifts of Light, Light Touched, and Aura Gifts. And then in Boons, you can run whatever guild boons your guild happens to have. Most guilds have at least the armor pen, but if you had the power or uh, well, those are the two main ones. Either the armor pen or the power bonus. Since it's a power share build, I run the power. For defense, you're gonna want HP once your guild has it available. If not, defense is fine. Utility, I'd take the mount speed, but you can choose whichever you prefer in there. And then for PvP, I usually take the stamina drain. Uh, so once I have that available, that's what I'll be taking. Here, I would take the Legion's Valor, and then hmm, here I'd take the Combat Triage. Uh, it's it's not a big heal, but it's an additional heal that can trigger some of our other boons that are useful. And then for the final tier, I would take the Versatile Warrior. And then each one of these, once you open them, are all useful. Alright, for Sharendare, I just went all the way across the bottom. And for the reasoning, we got power because it's power share build. Crit strike because the more crits we do, the better. And then when we don't crit, we have the owlbear cub, so we get additional damage that way. 3% more action point gains. This allows us to use our dailies more frequently, combined with prism and whatnot. Elven Ferocity. Uh, this is because we can potentially hit for an extra 20,000 arcane damage versus a chance to heal. We're already doing significant healing, so we don't really need that as much as the ability to kill some of our opponents. And then Elvish Fury, because none of the rest really are that great. But for PvP, I mean, the Elven Resolve could potentially be useful. In Dread Ring, I went for the power and movement. And then lifesteal over the regen, because we don't really need regen. I went with the piercing for more damage, or armor piercing. And then shadow touch for the same reason as the yeah, for the same reason as what we talked about in the Sharendare tree with the extra damage. And then Burning Guidance. This is actually pretty important for us. It's a huge source of damage. With the way Valve Enmity with or Binding Oath stack, you trigger this quite a lot. And then in Icewind Dale, you can really take either. We don't get combat advantage very often, so I took the AoE resist. Here we didn't need the income and healing, so I took the stamina gain. Crit severity over recovery, because we're trying to hit a little bit harder. Same with this, over the chance of reducing an attack by 2,000 damage. And then finally, Rousing Warmth. This actually triggers quite frequently, so it's an extra 3,000 damage almost constantly. In Underdark, we went with the power and HP over the defense. Here we went with the crit over the lifesteal because we're trying to get those crit heals. Here I took, because we don't get the combat advantage, I just took the regen. Here you want to take the shorter control effect duration, because the less uh, downtime you have, the better. And that's better than the stamina regen. And then I just took Abyssal Strikes. This one doesn't really matter for us in PvP, so it's whatever you prefer. Tyranny of Dragons, once I have it fully unlocked, it's going to be 400 power, 400 critical. Here it's going to be the 400 armor pen. And then this tier you can choose either one. I'll most likely just take the lifesteal rating. And then in the final tier, the useful ones, you could take Dragon's Grip, Dragon's Fury, or you can potentially take this, but we're not really a lifesteal build, so I would suggest either Grip or Fury. I'm gonna go with Dragon's Fury. With Maze Engine, I went with Abyssal Siphoning over the income and healing bonus. Once again, shorter control effect durations over combat advantage. Here you can choose either one, but I preferred the action point gain, so we get those dailies back faster. And then in the final tier, you're definitely going to want the engine inspiration. This heals for quite a bit, and it's fairly frequent. In Elemental Evil, it's power over the defense. Lifesteal Severity over regen, because we don't really need regen. Critical over recovery, and then I went with Gale Retribution once again for the critical over the recovery. If you notice you're having a hard time with your encounter power rotation, then go with the recovery. But if you're doing fine with it, just go for the critical strike. In Storm King's Thunder, either way, either one of these is fine. I just went with a lifesteal because I have enough control resistance at this point. Here I went with the stamina gain over the healing bonus. Here I went with the bonus to damage versus a little bit more recovery. This one, as a paladin especially, you're going to want the 3200 HP over the chance to deal 2000 fire damage. And then in the final tier, if you've got a lot of deflection, you can take Frozen Reflection, and it's actually fairly useful, especially in PvP, which is what I designed this build mostly for. But if you don't, I would suggest 1 point in the Chill of Winter and 2 in the Healing Warmth. And then in Ascendancy, usually I would go with Aura of Hope, but once again, this is more for PvP, and when you kill something, you want to be able to potentially stun lock them versus the small chance of adding to your allies' AP gain. In the Cabal tier, I took the critical strike severity over income and healing. Same reason, we want to kill stuff. We don't want to sit there and just try to outlast. And then in this tier, I took recovery over lifesteal. We don't really need the lifesteal. And then for the fourth boon, I took Aberrant Power. It kind of works like Avalanche, but it's just when you get hit, you can deal an additional 10k damage. That's more useful than any of these other three for us. Then for companions, I use the Energon, and this gives us 5% more HP, which is always useful as a paladin. Ooh, let me get back to them. The Owlbear Cub. Uh, Whenever we don't critically hit, we get 50% more. We get a hit for an additional 50% of our power, and I'll show what our power can get up to in just a few minutes. The Death Slot, I like using this because when you use your O Strike, uh, you get the chance to add the poison effect, and it actually ticks for a fairly reasonable amount of damage. Uh, my main companion is the Air Archon, because you get the damage bonus, the 5% damage bonus, but he's also very good for our power stats and our armor pen and recovery, which are all really useful stats for us. He does add a little bit of critical strike, and it's useful, but it's not a mandatory stat for us, so it all helps. Next up, I have the Earth Archon. We get the additional bonus for the damage, and then he also gives us fairly decent defensive stats, and he's got a good amount of HP as well. So if we ever need to be a little more tankier in like dungeons and whatnot, or if you have a squishier tank and you just kind of need to buff him up a little bit more, you can run him. Some other ones I use intermittently are the Polar Bear Cub, just for the additional outgoing healing, or I do use my Paranoid Delusion for soloing, because you get an additional damage bonus, and it does knock a lot of stuff prone. In dungeons, you can also run the Lilith, or the Liland, um, that gives you an additional heal every time you use a daily, and we use our dailies very frequently, so that's also another good option. And then another decent tanking pet is the Frozen Galabdur. This gives you an additional percentage of damage resistance. It just helps you survive a little bit better. Alright, for mount powers, we use Assassin's Covenant. This gives us a fairly significant power bonus. Artificer's Influence, it's the same thing. It gives us more recovery, movement, action point gain, and stamina gain. And we get to use this every minute, so we get a fairly decent amount of the time. This is so we can get around faster and in the combat more quickly. Here we use Protector's Camaraderie. Uh, it's for our companion, giving us more power and defense. And then this Champion's Return is for a little bit more survivability. And then to the attributes, I went full Constitution so we can have a significant amount of HP, and then full Charisma for the action point, stamina regen, and well, those are the two main ones. We don't really need the healing bonus or critical chance bonus from Wisdom. And then for gear, right now I'm using the Jarl's Gaze. I'll probably eventually change this to, I can't think of the name of it right now, but it gives a lot of power as well, but it gives you an additional 7,000 HP on top of it. It's just a little bit lower power. But when running MSVA or FBI, or even just doing the dailies out there, this is the preferred one for it because of the power gain. I've got the Vivified set, or at least the 3-piece relic set, so that when you're in those zones where you get the uh, Everfrost debuff, you get a damage bonus of 10%, and it adds up quite a bit. For weapons, I'm using the phase set. It gives us a damage bonus, and then it also gives us a AP regain. And then for enchantments on it, I'm running Holy Avenger. The higher rank of this, the better, but it gives us an additional heal, and it triggers off from our other abilities. And then I also, for additional damage, run the Tenebrous enchantment. This way you deal damage based on your HP as necrotic damage. So that actually adds up quite a bit of damage, because right now it's sitting at 157,000. It adds about a 5,000 damage bonus. Same thing, we run the phase shield. And then the third our Vivified piece for our relic armor. For our main artifact, I'm running the Sigil Devoted. Once again, it's so we get our AP back to use our powers. It also gives us 1,000 power, and the 1,000 defense is useful, but it's more for the power. I'm also running the Tiamat's Orb, but I will be testing with the Short of Orcus Wand once I get the belt, to see if the healing is still significant enough, and if I'll need the action point gain or not. Then I'm running the Oathbound Paladin and the Eye of the Giant, because it gives us all the stats we want. The HP, the power, and the AoE resist off the Paladin sigil, and we just want every single one of these stats off the Eye of the Giant, so it's just really good for us. For the neck, we're running the Tiamat's neck, and same with the belt, the Tiamat's belt. So we get that the 5% healing bonus. For the rings, I eventually am going to have once I pull them, get a Ring of Brutality +5 and a Ring of Rising Power +5. And this Ring of Dodd will go on to my companion. And then I run the Everfrost Chaincoat and the Everfrost Chausis. You can run the Gemmed Exquisite set. Either one, it's just personal preference. And I think that's everything as far as the build goes. For PvP, it's just whatever the best set you can get that gives you the most power. More so than any of the other pieces that give you recovery or regen or anything like that. And then also for PvP, I'll be running the Mirage set. It may not seem like a big advantage, but it does end up giving you enough of an advantage having the 3 extra illusions that it's worthwhile to use. And then you can also do a tank build, but I'll do a separate video for that. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed the video.